Get ready to hit the gas. Number 15, The French Connection from 1971. In The French Connection in 1971, director William Friedkin orchestrated one of cinema's most pulse-pounding car chases, a 5-minute sequence that redefined realism. Gene Hackman's character, Popeye Doyle, commandeers a civilian's 1971 Pontiac Le Mans to pursue a hitman escaping on an elevated subway train in Brooklyn. What makes this chase legendary isn't just the speed, it's the raw, unfiltered danger. Friedkin shot the scene guerrilla style, without official permits, weaving through real Brooklyn traffic at speeds up to 90 miles per hour. Stunt driver Bill Hickman piloted the Le Mans, with Friedkin himself operating the camera from the back seat. The production had minimal control. Off-duty NYPD officers helped to manage intersections, but many of the cars and pedestrians were unaware participants. One unscripted crash, a real collision with a civilian vehicle, was so authentic, Friedkin kept it in the final cut. The elevated train sequence was just as daring. Friedkin bribed a transit official with $40,000 and a one-way ticket to Jamaica to gain access to the tracks. The result? A visceral, nerve-shredding chase that still stands as a benchmark for practical stunt work. No CGI, just guts, grit, and gasoline. Number 14, Vanishing Point. In Vanishing Point in 1971, director Richard C. Serafin unleashed a white-knuckle, high-octane chase across the American West that became a cult symbol of rebellion and speed. The film stars Barry Newman as Kowalski, a Vietnam vet and ex-racer tasked with delivering a 1970 Dodge Challenger RT440 Magnum from Denver to San Francisco, and he bets he can do it in under 15 hours. The car, a 375-horsepower beast, was filmed tearing through Colorado, Utah, Nevada, and California with real studio locations and no studio trickery. The production used 5 identical Challengers, all provided by Chrysler, and the stunts were performed by legendary drivers like Kerry Lofton and Max Walchowski. The film's opening, actually the ending in disguise, features Kowalski barreling towards a police roadblock of bulldozers in Cisco, California at full throttle. What sets Vanishing Point apart is its raw authenticity. No green screens, no CGI, just pure Mopar muscle screaming across sun-scorched highways. The film's existential tone, paired with its stripped-down narrative and roaring soundtrack, turned it into a counterculture icon, a bullet of speed, defiance, and inevitable doom. Number 13, Bullet. In Bullet from 1968, director Peter Yates and star Steve McQueen delivered a car chase so groundbreaking it became the blueprint for every high-octane pursuit of the 1970s. The 10-minute, 53-second sequence pits McQueen's 1968 Ford Mustang GT390 Fastback against the 1968 Dodge Charger RT440 Magnum, tearing through the undulating streets of San Francisco at speeds exceeding 110 miles per hour. McQueen, a skilled driver, performed many of his own stunts, though legendary stuntman Bud Ekins and Kerry Lofton also took the wheel for the most dangerous maneuvers. The chase was filmed over 3 weeks, with 2 Mustangs and 2 Chargers prepped by Max Balchowski to withstand the brutal punishment. The city granted unprecedented access, closing down streets and even allowing filming at the San Francisco International Airport at night. The visceral realism came from no music, no dialogue, just engine roars, tire squeals, and raw tension. One unscripted moment, McQueen missing a turn and performing a reverse burnout, was so authentic it stayed in the final cut. Bullet didn't just raise the bar, it launched it airborne over a San Francisco hill, a cinematic thunderclap that still echoes today. Number 12. Gone in 60 Seconds. In Gone in 60 Seconds from 1974, H.B. Toby Haliki didn't just direct and star in the film. He orchestrated a 40-minute car chase, the longest in cinematic history, using real streets, real traffic, and 0 permits. The star of the chaos was Eleanor, a 1973 Ford Mustang Mach 1, the only car credited as a lead actor. Haliki, a self-made stuntman and gearhead, performed nearly all the driving himself. The chase rampages through Long Beach, California, with 93 cars wrecked, all for real. No stunt doubles, no CGI, and no second takes. One of the most jaw-dropping moments, Haliki slams Eleanor into a light pole at 100 miles per hour, fracturing a vertebrae. Yet he returned days later to finish the scene. The film was shot guerrilla style, often without city approval. Many of the near misses and crashes were unscripted, captured by Halicki's handheld cameras and raw instinct. The final jump, Eleanor soaring over a 30-foot gap, was real, filmed in one take with no safety rigging. This wasn't just a car chase, it was a one-man demolition derby, a cinematic daredevil that turned Gone in 60 Seconds into a cult legend. Number 11, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry from 1974. In Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, director John Huff delivered a rural car chase inferno that pushed the limits of practical stunt work. Peter Fonda's Larry Ryder and his crew flee a supermarket heist in a 1966 Chevy Impala, only to later switch to a 1969 Dodge Charger RT 440 Magnum, a snarling muscle car that becomes the film's mechanical co-star. The chase unfolds across California's Central Valley with real patrol cars, helicopters, and narrow country roads. The Charger's 375 horsepower V8 roars through walnut groves and farmland, evading a relentless pursuit led by Vic Morrow's Sheriff Franklin. The film's aerial sequences were shot using a Bell Jet Ranger helicopter, flown low and fast to heighten the tension. No camera tricks, just precision driving and gutsy stunts. Stunt coordinator Paul Baxley choreographed the action with minimal safety gear, relying on expert timing and raw horsepower. One of the most shocking moments comes at the finale. The Charger, having finally shaken the law, slams into a freight train, a real Alco S1 locomotive, in a sudden, brutal end. No dummies, no CGI, just a full-speed collision captured in one take. It's a realistic gut punch that still leaves tire smoke in its wake. Number 10, The 7 Ups from 1973. In The 7 Ups, director Philip D'Antoni, the producer behind Bullet and The French Connection, stepped into the director's chair to deliver a car chase that's as raw and relentless as its predecessors. Roy Scheider's character Buddy Minucci drives a 1973 Pontiac Ventura Sprint Coupe in pursuit of two criminals fleeing a 1973 Pontiac Granville. The chase barrels through the Upper West Side of Manhattan, across the George Washington Bridge and onto the Palisades Interstate Parkway, Taconic State Parkway, and Sawmill River Parkway. Stunt legend Bill Hickman, who also drove in Bullet and The French Connection, played one of the villains and choreographed the chase. The sequence was filmed with real traffic, minimal permits, and no CGI, relying on precision driving and in-camera stunts. One of the most shocking moments, a Pontiac Granville smashing into a parked truck, launching its roof into the air, was done practically with no dummies or digital effects. The chase's gritty realism, tight urban corners, and highway speed runs make it a spiritual successor to The French Connection, but with its own brutal blue-collar edge. It's a masterclass in analog adrenaline. Number 9, Smokey and the Bandit. In Smokey and the Bandit from 1977, director Hal Needham, a former stuntman himself, turned a simple beer run into a high-speed ballet of roaring engines and airborne muscle. Burt Reynolds, as Bandit, pilots a 1977 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am SE, a black and gold icon with a 6.6-liter V8, across state lines to distract law enforcement, while his partner hauls 400 cases of Coors beer, illegal to transport east of Texas at the time. The film's legendary stunts were all practical, with no CGI or green screens. Needham used 4 Trans Ams, all provided by Pontiac, and 3 were destroyed during filming. One of the most jaw-dropping moments is the Mulberry Bridge jump, where the Bandit launches the Trans Am over a dismantled bridge. The stunt was real, executed using a specially modified car with added rear ballast and a 750-plus horsepower NASCAR engine. The landing was so brutal, the car was totaled on impact. Filmed across Georgia and surrounding states, the chase scenes were shot on real roads with minimal permits. The result? A tire-squealing, law-dodging, bridge-jumping thrill ride that made the Trans Am a legend and redefined the car chase comedy genre. Number 8. White Lightning from 1973. In White Lightning, Gator McCluskey blazes through the Deep South in a roaring, mud-slinging war against corruption, and every frame is soaked in authenticity. Directed by Joseph Sargent and filmed across central Arkansas, the movie features real locations like Benton's I-30 Speedway and the Saline County Courthouse, grounding its gritty tone in southern soil. Gator's ride of choice, a 1971 Ford Custom 500 modified for moonshine running mayhem. The film's most iconic car chase sees Gator elude corrupt Sheriff J.C. Connor's Ned Beatty by launching his car off a riverbank onto a moving barge, a stunt performed by Hal Needham, Reynolds' real-life friend and legendary stuntman. The jump went wrong. The car landed partially in the water, and Reynolds dove in to rescue Needham himself. The film's stunts were all practical, with no permits and minimal safety gear. Real roads, real danger, and real Southern grit. The final chase ends with Gator goading Connors into a fatal plunge off a river embankment. No CGI, just a sinking patrol car and a drowning villain. White Lightning didn't just burn rubber, it lit the fuse for the Southern outlaw car genre that followed.
Number 7. The Driver. In The Driver from 1978, director Walter Hill stripped the car chase down to its rawest form. No names, no music, just the primal howl of engines and the screech of rubber on asphalt. Ryan O'Neal plays the unnamed getaway driver, a stoic wheelman whose precision behind the wheel borders on supernatural. The film's centerpiece is a nighttime pursuit through downtown Los Angeles, where O'Neal's character flees police in a 1974 Ford Galaxy 500, pursued by a fleet of Plymouth Furies. Every stunt was performed practically, with no process shots or CGI. Stunt coordinator Billy Burton confirmed that Ryan O'Neal was trained to perform many of the maneuvers himself. The chase choreography is surgical. Tight turns, J-turns, and reverse 180s executed in real traffic under real pressure. One standout moment is the underground parking garage scene, where O'Neal demolishes a brand new Mercedes-Benz W108 250S to prove his skill, slamming it into pillars, ripping off bumpers, and flattening panels in a brutal display of control and destruction. Shot entirely on location in LA, The Driver is a masterclass in analog tension, a noir ballet of steel and smoke that still grips like a vice. Number 6. Mad Max from 1979. In Mad Max, director George Miller ignited a new era of vehicular mayhem with a film that fused dystopian grit and real-world danger. Shot on a shoestring budget across Melbourne and rural Victoria, the film's car chases were executed with no CGI, no permits, and often no closed roads. Just raw nerve and Aussie ingenuity. The film opens with the Knight Rider chase, a blistering pursuit involving a stolen Holden Monero HQ and multiple main force patrol interceptors, including Max's 1974 Ford Falcon XB sedan. The stunts were coordinated by Grant Page, with many scenes filmed at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour on public roads. The chaos was real. Cars skidded through intersections, nearly missed civilians, and collided with actual roadside obstacles. The film's mechanical star, the pursuit special, Last of the V8 Interceptors, was a heavily modified 1973 Ford Falcon XB GT coupe fitted with a non-functional WAND supercharger and Concorde-style nose cone. Its menacing presence and thunderous V8 soundtrack became iconic. One of the most shocking moments, Knight Rider's fiery death, was captured in a single take using real pyrotechnics and a full-scale car rig. Mad Max didn't just raise the stakes, it detonated them.
Number 5. Cannonball. In Cannonball from 1976, director Paul Bartle and star David Carradine delivered a chaotic, rubber-burning spectacle inspired by the real-life Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash, an illegal coast-to-coast race protesting the 55-mile-per-hour speed limit. Carradine plays coy Cannonball Buckman, a parolee who enters the Trans-American Grand Prix, a no-rules race from Los Angeles to New York in a 1970 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. The film's stunts were orchestrated with minimal permits and maximum carnage. Shot on real streets across Los Angeles and the American Southwest, the production leaned into a demolition derby aesthetic, with over 50 vehicles wrecked during filming. Bartle, known for Death Race 2000, brought his signature blend of satire and destruction, while stunt coordinator Gary Davis ensured the mayhem was real and relentless. One standout sequence features a Pontiac Trans Am flipping end over end after a high-speed collision, a practical stunt executed with a real car and pyrotechnics. Another scene shows a Chevy Corvette skidding off a cliff, captured in a single take with no miniatures or models. Cannonball is pure 70s grit. No CGI, no safety nets, just roaring engines, twisted metal, and outlaw adrenaline from coast to coast. Number 4. Race with the Devil from 1975. In Race with the Devil, director Jack Starrett fused horror and high-octane action into a uniquely terrifying chase thriller starring Peter Fonda and Warren Oates. The film follows two couples in a 1973 Dodge Travco motorhome as they flee a satanic cult across rural Texas after witnessing a human sacrifice. What begins as a vacation spirals into a relentless pursuit, and the RV becomes both sanctuary and battering ram. Filmed entirely on location in rural Texas, the production used real highways, bridges, and back roads with no studio sets or digital effects. The chase scenes were choreographed by stunt coordinator Gary McLarty, who transformed the bulky RV into a surprisingly agile escape vehicle. One standout sequence features the RV barreling down a narrow bridge, while cultists and pickup trucks flank both sides, all shot practically with real vehicles and no green screen. The film's climax is a brutal gauntlet of Molotov cocktails, overturned trailers, and high-speed collisions, culminating in a fiery standoff. The RV's damage was real, sustained over multiple takes, and the actors were often inside during the stunts. Race with the Devil proved that even a lumbering motorhome could deliver white-knuckle thrills, especially when Satanists are in hot pursuit.
Number 3. Thunderbolt and Lightfoot from 1974. In Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, director Michael Cimino's debut film, Clint Eastwood and Jeff Bridges tear across Montana in a series of gritty, unscripted car chases that blend style with raw danger. Early in the film, Bridges' character steals a 1973 Pontiac Trans Am 455 Super Duty straight off a dealership lot, a real car, no props, and uses it to rescue Eastwood's Thunderbolt from an assassin. The Trans Am barrels through ditches and riverbanks in a wild escape, filmed on location with no permits and minimal stunt rigging. Later, the duo hijacks a 1973 Buick Riviera boat tail, which becomes a bullet-riddled wreck after George Kennedy's character unloads a shotgun into its rear glass. The Riviera is then dirt-tracked across rugged terrain in a desperate bid to outrun their pursuers, all captured with practical effects and real damage. The most chaotic moment comes when they commandeer a jacked-up 1973 Plymouth Fury, which the original driver rolls into a ditch. Eastwood and Bridges then steal the battered Mopar and flee out where their enemies are hiding in the back seat. No green screens, no CGI, just real cars, real crashes, and two anti-heroes outrunning fate on Montana's unforgiving roads. Number 2. The Gumball Rally from 1976. In The Gumball Rally, director Charles Bale, a former stunt coordinator, turned the illegal coast-to-coast race into a roaring comedic free-for-all. Inspired by Brock Yates's real-life Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash, the film features an eclectic cast of racers tearing from New York to Long Beach in exotic machines, including a 1976 Ferrari Daytona Spider, a Kawasaki Z1 motorcycle, and the film's mechanical star, a 1967 Shelby Cobra 427 SC CSX 3243. That Cobra wasn't a replica, it was the real deal, loaned by Shelby collector Les Lindley. Its thunderous V8 kicks off the film in Manhattan traffic, launching the race with a deafening roar. The stunts were all practical, filmed on real roads across the U.S. with minimal permits. One standout sequence features the Cobra and Ferrari racing side by side through the Los Angeles River Basin, a location later immortalized in Grease and Terminator 2. The film's tone is light, but the driving is serious. Real speeds, real crashes, and real danger. No CGI, just raw horsepower, screeching tires, and a single rule: there are no rules. It's outlaw adrenaline wrapped in a grin. At number 1, Rolling Thunder from 1977.
In Rolling Thunder, director John Flynn and screenwriter Paul Schrader crafted a revenge thriller that simmers with trauma and explodes in a final act of cold fury. The film stars William Devane as Major Charles Rain, a Vietnam prisoner of war who returns home to unspeakable tragedy and ultimately vengeance. While the movie is more psychological than action-packed, its climatic car chase is a brutal, no-frills burst of realism that hits like a gut punch. The chase unfolds in rural Texas, where Rain and fellow veteran Johnny Voden, played by a steely Tommy Lee Jones, track down the killers. Rain drives a 1973 Ford Galaxie 500, a full-size sedan that's more blunt instrument than getaway car. The pursuit is short, but every frame is grounded in practical stunt work. No music, no slow motion, just the crunch of tires on gravel and the roar of V8 engines. Filmed on location with real roads and minimal safety rigging, the sequence culminates in a tense standoff at a remote brothel. The chase isn't flashy, but it's raw, unflinching, and soaked in vengeance, perfectly mirroring the film's stripped-down emotional core. A final drive into darkness and justice. The 1970s gave us car chases that still leave skid marks on cinema history. Fast, fearless, and filmed without a shred of CGI. These scenes weren't just thrilling, they were dangerous, daring, and unforgettable. From backstreet showdowns to freeway chaos, each chase was a masterpiece of timing, skill, and raw horsepower. Today's action films might be bigger, but they rarely match the grit and realism of these classics. Did your favorite 70s car chase make the list, or did we miss one that still gets your heart racing? Let us know your pick for the wildest 70s car chase in the comments below.